Boone Meadow artists, Mrs. T here again. Welcome back to the art room. For today's activity, we are learning about the artist Sonia Delaunay. Now, she's not necessarily one of like the most well-known or most famous artists. Chances are you've never even heard of her. The reason why I'm attracted to her work is because of her use of color as well as her geometric shapes. Now, Sonia doesn't, stick to only one geometric shape. However, she does tend to gravitate towards circles and more circles, which I tend to do in my personal work as well. In my sculptures, I tend to use a lot of circles along with color. So Sonia and I are similar in those ways. For the activity that we're focusing on today, your materials are going to be, you're going to need construction paper of some sort. I used some scrapbook paper along with solid colors just to give some interest and intrigue. So you're gonna need that. You're gonna need a piece of paper as your base. I chose black only because, as you can see in our example here, it makes all the colors just really pop out. So you'll need that, the actual page that you're going to, glue everything down to. You're going to need a glue stick. You can use white glue. However, it will just take a little bit longer to dry. No big deal. You'll want a pencil and an eraser. You'll need scissors to cut your circles out. Make sure you have permission to use the scissors and or supervision. You will want some type of tools that will help you to make a circle. So if you do have a compass at home, you'll need a compass. If you don't have a compass at home, but you've watched the enrichment video and you have made your own homemade compass, you can use that. Or, just like we do in the classroom, if you have lids, circular lids, or even just circular containers of some sort that you can use as a tracing tool. If you are using lids that you cannot keep as a tool, so in other words, you're using like a glass or a bowl or something, make sure that when you trace, you use a pencil, because if you use a marker, that marker will usually leave marks on your tracing tools. So if it's something that you use when crafting or creating artwork already, and it's okay if you mark them up, use those. But if you can't leave marks, make sure you trace your circles with pencils. We always want to work in pencil first anyway. So you'll need some circles to trace. And you won't need any other color materials today because the construction paper is your color. Couple things about Sonia that I want to share. In the introduction video, it really heavily spoke more on her work than it did about her. So a little bit that I wanted to kind of share, a quote that I love that she said was, the color is the skin of the world. I love that. You think about the world, and if you were to be standing, let's just say up in the sky, you're floating up in the sky, and you are looking down at our world, the earth, you would see color, lots of color, mostly blues, greens, that kind of thing. We get that, earth, water, that kind of thing. But in her mind, color is the skin. It's the outer layer of our world. And I think that that's just so beautiful, because as you get closer and closer down to the earth, you would see all the different colors that are out there. Depending on where you are looking, you might see more orange hues because it's sand and desert and dry. If it's you might see a lot of green if it's a grassy plains area. So it's really kind of cool. I just love that quote. I think it's fantastic. But Sonia pioneered the movement of simultaneism, which is basically the simultaneous contrast. So when she was creating a lot of her circle work, she was thinking about the exploration between colors and how depending on how you layer those colors, how you place those colors, side by side, one on top of the other, they can create a sense of depth and or movement. And I think that that's really awesome. She's a great artist to talk about after we learn about Picasso, because Picasso, we know, was on the forefront of the movement Cubism. But Sonia was a part of that movement as well. It's that use of geometric shape and lots, and color to create pure abstraction. Well, she was a part of Cubism in the way of its Orphic Cubism. So it's pure abstraction and bright colors. And so it's a really interesting style. So you still get that geometric abstraction, but the color is really what communicates to its viewers. So it's really interesting, and I really enjoyed looking through her work and the way that some of her compositions, remember, a composition is how our materials are laid out, how our work is laid out on the plane or the piece. So you think about the composition is how our materials are laid out in our image. So she makes such dynamic compositions through the use of depth of color. It's really kind of cool. So let's get started on our project. So there's a couple ways that you can start this. Because we are going to be gluing onto our surface, a lot of her work, she has sometimes an imaginary line through her work, which this one here, the way I laid it down, I did an imaginary line. However, sometimes she would actually have a physical line drawn in her work. This project, if you need the visualization of a line without making a mark, you can always put a crease in your paper. You're going to always have this crease once you do it, but it might just help you visually. So I'm going to go ahead and just fold my paper kind of randomly on a diagonal. Just, it's kind of the way I want my composition is diagonal. Decide if you're going to work landscape, so right to left, or portrait, top to bottom. I'm going to work landscape. I have my invisible line so that I know I lay my work down straight. And you are going to need to take all of your construction paper and you're going to need to start making your circles. For the sake of time, I went ahead and I made some red circles, some green circles. I have, my flower circles, blue circles. So I've already made some circles. And then I have some yellow circles here where you can see I cut one out already. So get your circles traced and cut out. Remember, make sure that you have permission to use the scissors and or have supervision. Same with the compass. Remember, if you're using a compass, the compass has a sharp pivot point, so gotta be safe. I already kind of cut these, so I'm just gonna pull mine out. So, all right, so that way we can get going and keep working. Remember, I keep all my scrap paper. I have a little basket that I keep all my scrap paper in. Continue to do so. This one I cut really wonky, so I'm going to clean it up just because I'm a little bit fussy. It's not going to be a perfect circle, but that's okay. All right, so once you have all of your circles cut out, start thinking about your layout. How do you want these to lay out? Sonia would put some full circles, and then she would cut some circles in half. I'm going to just kind of I'm going to lay some out, and you can go outside of your picture or your page too. Like, that's okay. This is your composition, so you create this however you want it to look. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think I want a little bit less. So however you want to do it, get it laid out, and then start gluing down. Now, I have various different sizes cut, and then some of them are not cut. I was just trying to make it a little bit different. You can layer, you know, however you want to do it. But once you get going, sorry, my glue cap was. Once you've made some decisions, start adding your glue. I would get everything laid out before you actually start gluing down. That way, if you decide to make any changes, you're not trying to rip dried glue and stuff like that off the paper. So, but make sure you get your glue on. Don't forget, if you want a visible line, you gotta kind of move things back and give them some space so that you can get that visible line in there. It's hard when you are gluing on top of another one. All right. Get those glued on. Almost done. And, you know, you can decide how many circles you want to put in there, how many layers you want to make. It's really just based upon what materials you have available, how much you have, and what your vision is of the finished product. There's no right, there's no wrong. This is yours, so own it. Now I'm going to throw in, I cut some of my little red circles in half just to kind of have a little fun. So I'm going to add some of those half circles on mine. And then once you decide, all right, I think I'm done, then you're done. Again, no right, no wrong. You get to decide. I think I'm going to continue. Oops. Do a little guy there. All right. So I think I'm going to call mine done. So I have my finished work here. Remember, you are not required to submit anything. However, if you would like to share, and I'd love to see your work, please don't hesitate to send me an image of your finished work through Canvas. Stay creative. Hope you guys are having fun, and I will see you guys soon. Bye, Boone Meadow!